Helldivers 2 is genuinely such a great game. There are a lot of multiplayer games out there, but very few are PvE, and even fewer are as generous with the overwhelming number of lives that you have access to that make death not that punishing, and in fact, something that's kind of hilarious. And the community for Helldivers, there's just something satisfying about gunning down bugs and automatons in a swarm, especially when you have your friends around. The absolute chaos of being trapped behind cover as this endless wave of massive robots charges down on you and your friends is so much fun. And it's hard to describe how satisfying it is to shoot a grenade into one of those outposts and blow the entire fucking building into smithereens, only to immediately get shot and nearly die. And we're not even starting to talk about the number of times my own friends have called down an airstrike directly on top of my head. Malevelon Creek is an event so infamous it's known outside the community as a meme, and it even has its own fan rock song. This game was massive, and people fucking loved this game. And almost overnight, this game went from one of the most beloved to one of the most hated games, dropping under 50% positive reviews, over 200,000 negative reviews in 72 hours. And it's all because of a seemingly innocuous update where they require a PSN login. A minor pain in the ass for most, which is not something that is really all that out of the ordinary. Ubisoft requires a Ubisoft account to play their games, Microsoft requires a Microsoft account, and so on and so forth. Requiring a secondary account to log in to play a game is by no means something new, and for most people, this is a minor inconvenience at best. But due to technical issues at launch, Helldivers 2 was not able to require a link to your PlayStation Network account in order to log in. And the fact that they launched the game without this requirement and added it later is what's causing all of the issues. You see, the PlayStation Network is only available in 69 countries, so by not requiring a PlayStation Network account, 177 countries where the PSN isn't available were able to purchase and play the game. And now that this requirement is being enforced, all of those countless people can't play the game that they fucking paid for. And I think the reason this is hitting so hard for so many players, where other account linkings have gone completely under the radar, is partially due to the fact that Helldivers 2 is very much an international game due to these major orders where the entire player base, everyone with a copy of this game, can contribute to these major orders to capture planets for democracy. And I mean, really think about that. 177 countries can no longer participate in these major orders. There are only 69 countries left who can participate in these major orders. Think about that. Think about the player base being completely cut off. Think about people's friends who they've made online internationally to play this game that they can no longer play with. This game isn't a player versus player shooter, it's a co-op shooter. And I feel like that breeds a lot of camaraderie between the players as opposed to toxicity like we seem to see in almost every shooter. And a lot of attention has been placed on Spitz, a staff member at Arrowhead Studios who's been active in the community Discord, and he's had a lot to say. Some of the more hopeful messages he said are, internal discussions are going on about the mandatory linking change, and while I can't reveal the details, the response from our dev teams has been pretty universally negative, and we're looking for a better option, which at first seems pretty hopeful. And another message says, if a better solution isn't provided for players who are in regions without PSN countries, I'm assured that we won't be making the requirement mandatory for those players. We're not going to force people to either break Sony TOS or not play the game, which is huge. And even though Spitz says he was trying to find a workaround and he was trying to find a way to avoid banning people, it's May 5th, guys. It's today. Sony has removed access to Helldivers 2 in every region that cannot make a PSN account. This denies access to every player that bought the game in those regions over the past several months. So despite what Spitz says, access has been removed. The last few days of watching Sony gut Helldivers 2 was a grim reminder of the pitfalls of working with a publisher. Make sure you know what you're getting into before signing your game away. There are good publishers out there, and we've seen them kick a lot of ass for indies. Always have a lawyer review your contracts and have everything in writing. I hate seeing this kind of thing happen, especially to such a good game. It's been a long goal of mine to either start a publishing house for indies or start working for one that aligns with the goals I have. Situations like this just make me want to bump that higher up in the queue. This is being said by Pirate Software, a beloved content creator not only just in the gaming space, but more specifically in the programming space, because he's a former Blizzard and Amazon Game Studios developer. So him saying this actually means something. And if this actually comes to pass, I will personally be very excited. Now, I know I keep harping on these 177 countries that can't play Helldivers, but I feel like that might not really get the point across. So someone actually created a map for who all won't be able to play the game. And as you can see, over half the world, like sure, North America and Europe will be fine, but basically everywhere else can go fuck themselves. The Middle East, almost the entirety of Asia and Africa, really just anywhere that doesn't have a large English-speaking presence can't get a PSN account. And these are all countries with people who purchased the game and now can't play it. Again, the fact that this requirement came out months after the game's release is the problem, not simply having a requirement in the first place. Because if requiring a PSN account to log in was the requirement from the beginning, we would not be having this discussion. Now, while some outlets are reporting that Steam is allowing refunds for anyone who purchased the game due to this new policy change, people are reporting that their refunds are being denied. And this is due to Steam's refund policy, where if your playtime has exceeded 2 hours, you cannot refund the game. So this means the people who purchased this game and now can't play it can't refund it. Another Arrowhead staff member, the community manager specifically, had this to say: "Well, we always knew this day would get here, and it's going about how I expected. I'm actually happy for us to be able to take action against player reports and make them safer across the board, personally." And she's referring to the fact that by wrapping all of the players into the PSN ecosystem, they get to use Sony's moderation tools and make banning players who are reported for harassment actually suffer consequences, which is apparently something their moderation team struggled with before. This is Arrowhead admitting that they knew this was going to be a problem and they did nothing to communicate it.
But freedom doesn't come free. No! Sweet liberty!